You're listening to World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world. And here are your hosts, Aingeal Rose and Ahonu.
Hi, you are very welcome. I am Ahonu, and both Teon Lucas and myself felt the need to create a part 2 of our podcast on mastery. This session is about remembering our godliness, our divinity. It's about remembering our original intention, our origins, our original selves before deciding to incarnate into our earthly experience. It's a session on pure mastery. And here's Teon explaining the need for part 2.
Thank you, Ahonu. It's good to be here again. So what we've captured here is a little behind-the-scenes view, kind of the director's view, behind the previous podcast on mastery. So in that one, I took Ahonu to different places in consciousness. But you might wonder, how did I get there? How did I show him the timeline that's forming events? Or the causal and astral plane where you can have fun and create a new threshold? Or, better yet, how did we get to the Panchatattva, which is before form itself?
If you haven't watched or listened to Mastery Part 1 yet, we encourage you to watch or listen to it first, because only then will this one make sense. Part 1 of Mastery can be found on YouTube by searching for Consciously Creating Reality, Teon Lucas on Mastery, Part 1. However, if you are an awakened soul and wish to get straight into the revelations on Mastery that are covered in this session, please be aware that this session does involve some closed eyes awareness exercises. So only watch it or listen to it when not driving or in control of a motorized vehicle. In following the awareness that Teon teaches in this session, we had insights of what our purpose is here and what it's not. In answering Teon's simple questions like, who am I as awareness before incarnation? Or another question he asked, where did we come from before we decided to camp out in this universe? Or do we already know each other in this awareness without the universe? It is the first feeling that I've ever had of being eternal, of being aware of the essence of infinity. And this was brought about by the simple lesson of leveling up in frequency, which Teon taught in his multidimensional mastermind. And you'll find the links to all of these below. But it all started for me when he first asked that question, who am I, before I decided to explore this particular universe? And I found that I was looking down from above at infinite multiverses and saying things like, no, not that one, not that one, not that one, yes, this one, and then entering into that experience. And for me, it immediately answered the question, who am I and why am I here? And then I realized that once chosen and embodied into the pseudo-reality of this universe, we comply with the local laws right here. In other words, in other universes, there may not be gravity or fire or greed, etc. But while in this one, they form our 3D reality, and that's where death comes in. We live in a world where everything dies. It helped me to understand how and why masters like Babaji and Saint Germain and others could come and go in and out of this reality. It's because they maintained their connection to their causal selves from where they made their choices in the first place. We just forgot ours. So have a listen, because here is Teon placing this session, part 2, in context.
So picking up where we left off, the Panchatattva pulls you up out of duality. We can go even further. You get a different viewpoint on that. Things don't have an intrinsic meaning. Now we're playing with that going, well, if the root of something is beyond where we thought we were experiencing it from. Can we go further? So beyond the Panchatattva, beyond the causal plane where you are formless experience, there is a awareness you can have that precedes this universe. So we're now focusing on the awareness that precedes this universe, precedes vibration. Who am I as awareness? Before the experience of this universe. Notice how your viewpoint changes. It might be possible to see down through all the layers of the universe. Do we already know each other in this awareness without the universe? Where did we come from before we decided to camp out in this universe? Would anyone like to share?
I got a kind of an insight in.
Yeah.
You know how it's kind of so big that it's hard to grasp it. But
Yeah.
let me try and catch it again. Yeah, you know how people say, like in the physical level, they say, especially anybody who's trying to understand like who they are or what they're doing here, they tend to say that they're here to learn lessons, you know, that's the reason that they're on earth, right? And what I found myself in answer to your question, Teon, which I'm glad you're recording because I think it's a really profound question. Who am I as awareness before my experience of this dimensional space or of this earth or whatever way you finished that question? But I found that it was nothing to do with lessons at all. Like that was I think maybe an astral and causal level trying to make sense of it, trying to make sense of the physical. And where I went with your question was, I clearly felt as if I was an emanation from source that was observing, watching multiple universes, just observing creation. Really, that's what it felt like, and it felt as if I had eyes too, which was really interesting, or that I was eyes, or whatever way that. But that's the best I can do to describe it. But I was watching all these multiple emanations swirling and forming and creating, and all sorts of stuff going on. And at one point, when I posed the question, who am I as awareness, before entering into this experience, it's like it was a choice that I made. Said, oh, let's look at that experience, or let's go into that experience. And that was the downstepping through causal, astral, and into physical. That seems to me what it was. And it was nothing to do with lessons. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't
There's
like
something really profound about that little piece there. If I can just capture that and go back to it. You looked down in to the universe,
yes,
right? So as you're describing looking down in, your awareness descending down in. What was the
yes.
part you said? You asked a question like, what's going on there?
Yeah, it was like, oh, let's experience that. Or,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
So let's experience that kind of creation. Let's have a look there, right?
yes,
And look meaning, awareness descending on in as which
yes,
is you.
yeah,
So from that point, and the reason I'm bringing you back to there, that's a different viewpoint than you might ever otherwise have,
absolutely.
right?
It's like waking up from sleep in the morning, where you suddenly wake up and it's a whole different thing than in the sleep state. That's the sense of awareness I got from that experience right there. Was like, whoa, huge, unlimited. Talk about it, immortal or eternal. It was like eternal one moment, and then when you step down into an experience, it's like as if it was closing off other senses. Remember, we were talking the last time about these senses being everywhere in all ourselves as well as in all our
Yeah.
levels, right? And that's what it felt like, was that coming down into this experience, or even any of those universes that you talked about, that the experiences felt as if they were closing off certain awarenesses so as to experience this one intensely.
Right.
That's the sensation it was.
So if we take that point of, oh, let's go experience this, right? We start from there
Yeah,
and feel, oh, let's experience this. What do I see down there, right?
yeah.
Feel that feeling now in every cell, in the center of every cell, in the center of every atom, directly. You're feeling you as the eyes that can see into any universe, directly in the center of every cell. View directly from there out through the center of each cell, through Anu, without stepping down through anything else. Here you. Let's have a look down in there. Looking
Oh,
through
that's like
vibration,
taking,
time, space, Anu. Oh, there we are. We're looking
yeah,
right into here.
it's like it's taking me back to that first intention to
Yeah.
explore.
So bring that intention into the center of every cell, the full sight of that. Bring those eyes into the center of each cell and look out.
That's remembering my divinity is what it is. Remembering my godliness, remembering my origin is remembering my original intention. Is what it's doing.
How does that feel?
That's pure mastery, that is. That's mastery. That's the first feeling I've ever had of being eternal. Following the awareness gleaned from these mastery sessions with Teon, Aingeal Rose and I went straight into our World of Empowerment journaling session, where every week, in a safe and supportive environment, we write out any issues that may be causing us difficulty. And I choose to write about the feeling I had where I was half here and that I had already died 25 years ago. It was the strangest feelings. And these feelings could have been as a result of the recent solar flares, or the full moon, or the sun in Scorpio, or Mercury in Sagittarius, or Venus in Capricorn, or Mars in Leo. But whatever the cause, I realized they were all me caught in a loop focused on this 3D experience. For example, me dying 25 years ago, it coincided with grief from the death of my firstborn son, the divorce from my first wife and subsequent estrangement from my later children, which translated into a living death. Indeed, it could have happened that I did actually die, and that's why I'm just a memory in their minds right now. It also explains death, because unless I remember who I am in spirit, I and everyone else are subject to the physical laws and therefore must use the mechanism that's provided in order to leave here. That is, die to the old beliefs and attachments that keep us here. In other words, get out of the loop. In this realization, I was seeing who I was attached to in this plane of experience. Notice I didn't use the word existence, and I didn't want to leave it. I felt I was in a pseudo half reality while I adjusted to the next experience that I had chosen. I felt also that everyone who dies is actually helping others realize that death is not real. It's just the mechanism we use to close off this reality in favor of another one. It also explained reincarnation to me. Reincarnation is simply where we have forgotten who we are and the choice we made to experience this universe. So we loop around in the astral, being reborn and reincarnating again and again until we remember. Now, I did go on to write further questions. For example, on that same day, in a midday nap, I had a dream. And in the dream, I was reaching out to put a book on a bookshelf. But I kept only being able to reach halfway, and then my reach would fail. And I couldn't get the book actually onto the bookshelf. And I asked myself, what does a book mean to me? And I realized that it represented me in the sense that it was all knowledge, all information, everything about me, my history, the whole thing was all in my book. And this is something that Aingeal Rose taught me about dreams, that everything in the dream is you. And it's good to ask those questions. And so I also asked about the bookshelf. What does the bookshelf mean? Well, I thought immediately of a library. And in a library, as in the Akashic Record library, but let's look at a physical library right now. There are books in certain categories. And you'll have fiction and non-fiction. You'll have romance, archaeology, history, kids' books, etc. And they're all in different sections. But I couldn't reach my section. That's what the bookshelf was representing. Because I'm embodied here, on Earth. And it's as if I believed so much in my 3D self that I couldn't reach out to where I actually belong, which was in that eternal bookshelf of all knowing, all knowledge, all love. I found it was all leading me to ask further why we must eat on Earth and why everything is about consuming. Like, for example, a car needs to consume petrol, gas to run. Humans need to consume other life forms in order to continue to live. And the same is true of all plants and animals, even the lowly amoeba. It's consuming something else in order to maintain its life here. We are consumers. And as long as we forget our true selves, we remain consumers, stuck in the loop. Everything is passing through, as into a mouth and out again, round and round in an endless loop of experience. It's as if we feed on every other life form in order to sustain our own life form. And I felt that was fundamentally wrong. Why? Because in that original state of where I was looking down on the multiverses, I didn't need to eat. Why would a spirit need to eat? And I realized that this 3D world is all about consuming other life forms and dying in order to try and escape from it. Now, I have to say I was careful not to mistake that for sole purpose, that we're here only to try and escape from it. No, we're here to experience it. That's what we choose in the first place. And that's why it answers the question, who am I and why am I here? Now, it also led me to further ask things like, what about hospitals? Why do we have drugs? Why do we have artificial interference with our life cycles? And all of those kinds of things. And it all answered itself beautifully. It's because we forgot who we are. And there seems to be a concerted effort to continue to make us forget who we really are. Especially in this time period, as we know. And we've seen that in all kinds of different ways. But in fact, it's been going on for millennia, indeed forever, in the earthly experience anyway. We don't know if this kind of thing is experienced in other dimensional spaces or in other universes, but that remains for us to explore and to experience. So, before I mention how to get out of the loop, the final thing I got from all of this was a little glimpse into what future business might look like. For example, I saw no wars, no money, no politics, no homelessness, no hierarchy of any kind, no leaders, no greed. And it came to me in the strangest kind of a way, because we were at Panera Bread waiting for our order at the drive-through window, and the guy asked for my credit card first, and I thought for a second, wait, no, give me the food first. I didn't say that out loud, of course. It was only going on in my head. But why not give me the food first? It's because nobody trusts another until they get paid. And I found the same thing applies everywhere. And in every country, every nation, every place. It was the same untrusting principle built into every business. Don't give them anything until they pay first, and only then you deliver the goods. It's the same no matter where you go. Any restaurant, any pub, any business, pay me first and then I'll give you the goods. And why is it not give me the goods first and then I'll pay you? Because we are not in our power, and collectively we're not ready to trust or be trusted. If we remembered who we really are, we would trust everyone implicitly, and everyone would trust us implicitly. Now, interestingly, the same thing came up with a member of our writing group. Tracia said she can't continue to do business as a mortgage broker anymore because of the amount of manipulation of her data that is sold to marketers for more and more profit, and she can no longer trust the financial authorities to be honest with her clients. Now, I realised the whole system is fundamentally flawed. Of course, that's not new, but why did I realise that? It's because we just do not trust each other at all on any level, and therefore we can't manifest a new future or a new human or true happiness or true love if we continue to disown our origins, which leads to distrust of our fellow humans. I saw immediately how our entire business world is designed to sell at all costs and care nothing for the consumer. Consumer? Oh dear, isn't that what they believe us to be? Consumers? And that was what changed for me. I realised all of it was designed to keep me in the loop of physicality. It was all to show me how I had forgotten who I was and why I was here. Now finally, after writing out that experience in our journaling class, I realised all of that was because I had forgotten who I was before deciding to camp out in this universe, in the words of Teon Lucas. I was agreeing to stay in the loop of experience. In engaging with greed and authority figures, I realised it was all designed to maintain me in the loop of experience. This lack of awareness makes getting out of the loop difficult. But here's the thing. Everyone can change their focus. You probably know that simply changing what you put your attention on can change everything. Keeping your attention here keeps you here. That's what's kept me here, stuck in this loop. Putting your attention on love gives you more love. Putting your attention on who you are before you decided to camp out in this universe frees you from the loop of experience. And in my case, putting my attention on causal in the way Teon Lucas was teaching us to do, I found clarity, I found understanding, I found bliss, and I even found a sense of eternal life. I realised that for most of my life I forgot who I am. And now I'm free. So if this intrigues you, or you'd like to find out more, please leave a comment below. Join the World of Empowerment for similar content, or contact us directly on the World of Empowerment website at worldofempowerment.com, or on Teon's website at yourawakeningresource.com. So with that, let me say a huge thanks to Teon Lucas, and blessings and love from myself, Ahonu, and from Aingeal Rose.
You have been listening to Aingeal Rose and Ahonu on World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world.